What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Cosmic Wonder. More news about Spider-Man Brand New Day today, as we have our first scene with Tom Holland's Peter Parker and Zendaya's MJ. And the setting for this scene is quite interesting. And I've seen a lot of people confused already online about this, but I actually think it's pretty simple what we're seeing here. On top of that, we also reportedly have an answer to a question that many fans, including myself, have been asking. And that is, who the heck is Sadie Sink playing in Spider-Man Brand New Day? We have heard just about every report that there is at this point. But considering where they're going with the story in Spider-Man Brand New Day, I think this one makes the most sense. We also do have a new report that tells us Marvel Studios really fought Sony about what the story should be for Spider-Man Brand New Day. Sony really wanted to go pretty big with this movie. They wanted it to be bigger than Spider-Man No Way Home, but that movie was already incredibly huge. I think the only way to make a just as good movie or better movie is to do something different and not perhaps bigger, but we'll get into these new reports in this video. As you can see here, we have new set photos for Spider-Man Brand New Day that show both Tom Holland and Zendaya on set. Now, these aren't necessarily leaked photos because this is an open set. Sony knows that people are going to take pictures, and I actually think that this is a part of their marketing plan. I think Sony and Marvel are actually planning for everybody's photos and videos of the set to be a part of their marketing campaign. That's exactly why they gave us that teaser and showed us the suit before the filming began. When it comes to the secretive stuff, they'll go inside studios so nobody can take pictures or videos. But in this scene we have right here with Tom Holland and Zendaya, they are seemingly at a cemetery where we can see the headstone of Aunt May where she is buried. Now, right away, I've seen a lot of people say, well, does MJ already remember who Peter is? Because it looks like they know each other in this scene. But I would argue against that because this scene actually mirrors kind of the ending of Spider-Man No Way Home. Peter goes to visit Aunt May's grave, which should be the exact same place that we're seeing in these set photos right here because the headstone is the same, May Parker. When you help someone, you help everyone. Peter is standing there, he puts a flower on the headstone, and then Happy comes up. And for a second, Peter actually wonders if Happy remembers who he is, but we go on to find out that he doesn't. He's just there to pay his respect to May, to visit her. So we know that Happy doesn't remember who he is, but he still remembers all of his connections to Spider-Man and still remembers everybody involved with Peter. So he doesn't just forget about May because he forgot about Peter. The same thing is true for Zendaya's MJ. So this new scene that we're getting with MJ and Peter, I actually think is mirroring this scene from No Way Home. But instead of it being an ending scene, I actually think that this scene is probably going to happen in the very beginning of Spider-Man No Way Home. And I think both the conversation that he has with MJ and what it says on May's headstone are going to cause Peter to really become that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. When you help someone, you help everyone. I think that's really going to resonate with Peter, especially after talking with MJ about this. I think the scene is going to be pretty similar. I think MJ doesn't know who he is, but they're going to talk to each other about how they both knew May. Spider-Man will probably be mentioned as well, and I think MJ might actually give a pretty good speech about what Spider-Man stood for, and this is gonna kick Spider-Man or Peter into high gear into becoming a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man that can help people like Aunt May did. It will also be pretty emotional, as you can imagine. That scene with Happy and Peter is actually an incredibly emotional scene. Seriously, if you go back and watch it, it's really, really good. Happy says, I lost a good friend a while back, speaking about Tony Stark, and it felt like this. It hurts because they're gone, and then it hurts all over again because you remember what they stood for, and you wonder, is all of that gone too? But Peter responds, no, it's not gone. Everyone that she helped, he'll keep it going, referring to Spider-Man. So I do think this scene connects us directly to an opening scene with Tom and Zendaya, Peter and MJ, to have a pretty similar conversation to get Spider-Man Brand New Day started. But you can let me know your thoughts about this in the comments. Now, like I mentioned, we have a new report about who Sadie Sink could be playing. This is coming from Christian Harloff. He mentioned this a couple of days ago on his live show. He had John Roca on the show and he asked him if he knew who Sadie Sink was playing in Spider-Man Brand New Day. John Roca said that he heard it's Mayday Parker, but then Christian Harloff said this. I've heard a pretty close to guarantee that she is playing Gwen Stacy. And after he reiterated, I've heard a pretty good guarantee that she's Gwen Stacy. And here's the thing about Christian. Christian's a buddy of mine. I've known him for a bit. I followed him for a bit. He's not really in the scoop game. He's not really the one to want to release a bunch of scoops. So when he hears something like this that he considers almost a guarantee, it probably means something. I'm not saying that it is officially confirmed that Sadie Sink is playing Gwen Stacy, but I will say Christian probably wouldn't be reporting it if he didn't think that it was actually true, and this does make sense, especially if you consider Marvel and Sony's change of plans for what Spider-Man 4 or Brand New Day is actually about. I did a video about this a couple of days ago if you want to check that out, but Alex Perez from the Cosmic Circus recently spoke out about this as well, and he stated on X, when I mentioned Null being the villain for Spider-Man 4, this was part of Sony's push to involve their symbiote storyline and connect it to Venom: The Last Dance. For a while, it was. They even teased it in a press release. However, Marvel wanted a different direction, the one that we have now, and they did actually tease that in a press release. I do remember that. I believe it was actually from Sony Japan at first where they mentioned it, and they took it down really quickly after that. But regardless, we have a new direction now for Spider-Man Brand New Day. However, since the movie was originally going to be so different and it was going to be a pretty big multiversal film, Sadie Sink might have originally been cast for a multiversal role. Perhaps it was Mayday Parker in the beginning, but changing the story would have changed her character. And now considering the story that we have, Spider-Gwen would make sense. After all, MJ is no longer in Peter Parker's life, at least not a lot. She's not a prominent figure in his life anymore. Don't get me wrong, he's always going to love her, and I believe he's probably going to go back to her eventually. She'll remember who he is. But also remember that in the comics, Peter has two major love interests throughout time, MJ and Gwen Stacy. There are some amazing stories involving Gwen and Peter. And since MJ doesn't know who Peter is right now, it does make sense to bring Gwen in. Plus, Spider-Gwen has been made super popular thanks to Into the Spider-Verse. The same thing goes for Miles Morales, and I think that both Spider-Gwen and Miles Morales are probably the future of the Spider-Man franchise post Tom Holland. So setting them up before his end makes a lot of sense. Now, don't get me wrong, I believe we have a lot of Tom Holland Spider-Man left. If what we know is true, he still has 2 more solo Spider-Man movies after Avengers Secret Wars coming. But he did talk about renegotiating some contracts recently, so we'll have to wait and see on that. But again, this movie is going to now be pretty grounded for the most part. And if MJ is off to MIT and Peter is going to a local college, well, perhaps that's where he can meet Gwen Stacy and a relationship can be formed. And maybe even a superhero relationship can be formed. And this would actually continue the casting of women who are known for their red hair for Gwen Stacy. At first in Spider-Man 3, we had Bryce Dallas Howard. In The Amazing Spider-Man, we had Emma Stone. Even though Emma Stone is a natural blonde, she is known for her red hair. And now Sadie Sink, who has very distinguishable red hair. Mayday Parker would have been sweet, and I'm still kind of holding out for that, her to be Mayday Parker from a different universe and be the daughter of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. But again, considering the shift in the overall story for Spider-Man Brand New Day, this does make the most sense. It is the most grounded story that they could go with as far as which character she is going to play. So it makes sense. So it looks like we're going to have a pretty emotional opening scene here with Peter Parker and MJ. Then Spider-Man becomes your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, stopping criminals locally, giving us a pretty grounded and street level Spider-Man. Looks like he might go to college and meet a new love interest. Then things really start to go off the rails when the Punisher and the Hulk situation happens and he has to step in. They might introduce Gwen Stacy, but not perhaps Spider-Gwen right away. That might come later, but either way, I'm liking what we have so far if this is indeed what we can expect from Spider-Man Brand New Day. But those are my thoughts. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest Spider-Man Brand New Day news. You can also find us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.